Wednesday, July 18th meeting of the County Board to order at 6:35 p.m. We will rise to the pledge, and then we will have an invocation from Jennifer Jackie.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead, please be seated for a minute. Ms. Jackie, would you like to come and speak to us?
Hello, everybody. I have some papers here to hand out. I only have 12 copies, I'm sorry. But hi, everybody. My name is Jen Jackie. I am the CEO of the Belvidere Family YMCA. Chairman Johnson asked me to come today and share a little bit about what we're doing in the community. But I'm not going to run down the normal gym and swim stats and that sort of thing. I want to talk to you guys about what our community collaborations are. I just handed out a sheet with lots of them. I'm not going to go over all of them, obviously. But at the Y, we really believe that the only way that we can make the community stronger is by working together with other partners, building on one another's expertise in order to wrap around services to the residents of Boone County. I wanted to highlight just a couple of those. We serve the community as a whole, but tonight I kind of want to focus on some of the ones that really work on building strong youth and allowing kids just to be kids. The first program is Build a Bike, and I know a lot of you in here are familiar with that and have participated in it. The Y has partnered with Manly Motors, Boone County Shopper, and the Belvidere Police Department on a program to provide youth in the community with a bike. These youth are kids whose families unfortunately cannot afford to purchase a bike on their own. Children are chosen from throughout the whole county through the different elementary schools. And in our first year, we were able to give away a bike and a helmet. In our second year, which was this year, we were able to give away the sponsored bikes. General Mills donated all the helmets. Don Banks personally donated all the locks. Maureen Catellis with McDonald's donated all the front and back light for all the children. And the ice cream truck came down and provided ice cream for all the kids. The kids also then attended a bike safety course with the community service officer through Belvidere. And in our first year, we provided 45 bikes. Last year, our second year, we provided 93 when our goal was 80. So next year, we're hoping for the big 100 mark. The second program that I want to focus on is a program that we do with District 200. This year, we were granted an award through the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois. We were able to provide the children who attended extended school year free care after they finished their day. So most of us know that, the kids in summer school tend to be the most at-risk kids that we have in the community. So we were able to provide Power Scholars, which is focused around supporting the students' learning from what they learned during the school day during summer school and doing enrichment activities that really build up around those. And we involved a bunch of community partners in those. And then the children received a free healthy lunch and snack provided by the Northern Illinois Food Bank. And the last program that I want to touch on is the Highline Project. The Y started participating in the community days that the Belvidere Police host on Highline Drive each Friday over the summer. In the last 3 years, the program actually began as a project to increase trust and comfort with the residents of the area. And over the last 3 years, it's grown and developed and evolved into a wonderful collaboration. The city provides free lunch to the youth in attendance. Officer Blankenship is down there interacting with the children. Dean's donates ice cream, sandwiches. The fire department comes down and sprays down the kids. It's fun to watch. There's been books donated, toys donated that the kids get to take home in that area. General Mills recently built a wonderful playground down there. And then as the Y, we bring out kids' games, STEM experiments, and interactive hands-on activities to engage the children. It's a great program. I invite you guys all to come down and see it. It's over the lunch hour on Fridays. It's a program that brings services to the community in an area that doesn't usually receive a lot of services. Since it has kicked off, the police have noted that it has decreased, the crime rates have decreased in that area, and more residents are coming up and interacting with officers. We actually threw a kickoff party this year with Seth Whitman Elementary. The kids there raised money and donated supplies, and we were able to have a magician and all that sort of stuff. And it actually we promoted it not just for the area, but throughout, and we even got children from Poplar Grove to be there. So next summer, we're looking at increasing it to at least 3 days a week in that area, and doing more things like I talked about with the Power Scholars program. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak about some of our programs. I feel very fortunate to be part of the community like Boone County and to be able to serve in the role I do. So let me leave you in a prayer to begin your meeting that we often use to begin our board meetings. Lord, thank you for letting us meet today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may be a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Jackie? Thank you very much. Next up, roll call, please.
Carl Johnson.
Here.
Sherry Branson. Here. Jeff Carlisle.
Here.
Denny Ellingson.
Here.
Sherry Gieske.
Here.
Carl Larson.
Here.
Ray Larson. Jessica Muehlner.
Here.
Marshall Newhouse.
Yep.
Bernard O'Malley.
Here.
Brad Stark.
Here.
Kathy Ward.
Yes, here.
Next up, I'd accept a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Ms. Branson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carlisle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I would accept a motion to approve the minutes from the June 20th County Board meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gieske, second by Mr. Carlisle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have appointments. There are, I believe, 3. Yes, 3 appointments. Philip Newhouse to be reappointed to the Planning Commission, and then to the Zoning Board of Appeals to take that back to the full 5-member board. Brad Fitter to a term that expires June 1st, 2019. That's the remainder of Mr. Van Laar's term. And Bob Wahlberg to a term that would expire June 1st, 2021. That's a 3-year term. Can I have a motion to approve the appointments?
So move.
Motion by Mr. O'Malley, seconded by Mr. Ellingson. Discussion. Ms. Milner.
I'm just disappointed. I know that the gentlemen that you've selected will do their best to serve the board with integrity, but there were a number of letters that arrived from individuals that would have been well qualified for those seats, and the perspective that I bring to this is that on this board and in other areas of the community where I volunteer and work, we are always looking at a shortage of people who want to get involved. And we never have enough volunteers, and we never have enough people stepping forward, and we question on these boards, why are more people not stepping forward to serve? And I think that maybe a small part of that is people don't step forward to serve because the same people will always be doing, you know what I mean? There were opportunities to bring new people into this, and we went right back to the same names that everyone sees all the time. Sorry, that's my perception of this.
Further discussion. Ms. Ward.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to make sure that we have individual votes on these people, so it's not just a unanimous slate of officers, so we vote individually on them.
Each one individually?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to change the motion? Can you amend, would you like to amend the motion?
I will move that we have individual votes on these 3 people for the appointments tonight.
Motion by Ms. Ward, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stark. All in favor of that motion as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
And then-
Ms. Ward?
One other thing, yes, there's a couple things. I, too, have some concerns, the same ones that Jessica mentioned. But the other thing that someone pointed out to me when they heard about these appointments is that if these are approved, and I know, and I've talked to Tricia about this, that they have to come from different townships in the county. But 4 of these will all be residing in District 1. And we have about more than half of the people that live in this county live in and around Belvidere and Belvidere Township. And I think that Mr. Schabacher is in Belvidere Township, I'm not sure. But we don't have anybody in the southwest part of our county. So the majority of all the votes will be cast and decided by people who live up in the northeast part of the county. So that's my second concern. And then I'm on the Community Building Board, and we've been waiting for 3 months to get an appointment, and we have not been able to get one, and I'm not sure what the holdup is. I know there's several people who've applied for that one as well. So I have a couple different concerns about the appointments.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Stark?
I will not be supporting this tonight. I know all 3 of these guys, good guys. Known Phil since we were kids. Known Bob a long time. Known Brad a long time. Mere fact is this just came to board docs this afternoon because I kept checking all day. Nothing at the appointments. Nothing at the appointments. I don't see why the packet, when it goes out, when it gets on board docs and goes live, why we don't have all the information there. So we're left with what, mere hours if we wanted to talk to these people? Not to mention there was a multitude of people that put in for the ZBA, and Kathy just pointed out, southern part of this county has no representation right now at all. And there was people from Floral Township that applied, and I think that's wrong. So I will not be supporting any of these due to the lack of getting it out there for us to see it.
Mr. Stark, just to clarify something for you, as far as when the appointments were put onto board docs, that's my fault. Just due to my schedule, it took me time to be able to talk to all the people involved that had applied and work through exactly who I wanted to appoint. So staff put those on as soon as they could. So that's, if you want to be ticked at somebody, that's my fault, and that's not staff's fault. So please don't point any disappointment at them on that.
I
Mr.
assume
Stark, go
so.
ahead.
And you were worried about people on your end, but you weren't worried about the people here and the people we represent then.
I think that's an unfair statement, Mr. Stark.
I don't think so.
Mr. Ellingson?
I just guess I want to say I will be supporting the names that are brought up. As long as I've known about county board business, the chairman of the board has been the one responsible for making these selections and bringing them forward. And they spend a lot of time, a lot of effort. You spend a lot of time and effort getting it done. As you said, the time it takes to do it, the context, the things you have to do are immense. And, you know, I guess maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I think if you're bringing it forward, I think you've decided they're the right ones, and we supported you to be the chairman. I don't really know why we'd have a real issue on somebody's got something specific.
Further discussion? Okay, first up would be the motion for Philip Newhouse. Roll call, please.
Sherry Branson,
Yes.
Jeff Carlisle,
Yes.
Denny Ellingson,
Yes.
Sherry Gieske,
Yes.
Carl Larson.
Yes.
Ray Larson is absent. Jessica Mueller,
No.
Marshall Newhouse,
Abstain.
Bernard O'Malley,
Yes.
Brad Stark,
No.
Kathy Ward,
Yes.
Carl Johnson.
Yes. Motion carries. Next up would be Brad Fitter. Go ahead.
Just prior to the meeting, I was asked if there would be a conflict if someone was serving on a township board and if they would still be able to be a member of the ZBA, and at this time cannot find any conflict, just for anyone who's wondering that question.
Roll call, please.
Jeff Carlisle,
Yes.
Denny Ellingson,
Yes.
Sherry Geeske,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Jessica Milner,
No.
Marshall Newhouse,
Yes.
Bernard O'Malley,
Yes.
Brad Stark,
No.
Kathy Ward,
No.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
Sherry Branson.
No.
Motion carries. Next would be Bob Wahlberg.
Denny Ellingson,
Yes.
Sherry Geeske,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Jessica Milner,
No.
Marshall Newhouse,
Yes.
Bernard O'Malley,
Yes.
Brad Stark,
No.
Kathy Ward,
No.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
Sherry Branson,
No.
Jeff Carlisle.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item, Sheriff Ernest. We have a recognition of some deputies.
Good evening, everybody. To be quick, we are recognizing one deputy today. Deputy Holster. He's always, this is like his third time he's been here. You probably recognize him. He saved a couple lives over the last year. This is a very important award, possibly saved countless of lives over his career. I want to thank a lot of the deputies for coming and supporting him. Our newest lieutenant, Scott Young, who took Mark Pollock's place, who recently retired. And by the way, he left for Arizona today. Doesn't realize that it's hot down there in July. But also the city of new police chief of Belvidere is here, Shane Woody. Thanks for coming to support us, Shane. Okay. Scott? And I'll just read it. On June 5th, 2018, Deputy Tim Oberholzer was recognized by the Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorists Organization, or AIM, for his exemplary performance in the area of DUI enforcement. Deputy Oberholzer made his 200th DUI arrest earlier this year. He is acknowledged for his efforts in this critical area of concern for public safety and serves as an example and inspiration to others in law enforcement community. Deputy, you are commended for your initiative, your proficiency, and exceptional attention to duty. Your actions have brought credit upon yourself and the entire department. On this date, you are awarded the Meritorious Service Award. He has been a deputy for almost 10 years. So for 200 DUIs, that's a lot of DUIs. So who knows the countless of lives that could have been saved, not only as a result of that arrest, but sometimes it takes an arrest to wake certain people up. So hopefully that made it improved a lot of people's lives for that effort. So very proud of you. We'll continue to have you up here every time you do good stuff, as well as the rest of our deputies. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Newhouse.
Sheriff, there have been multiple meetings where you've come forward with deputies who have gone and done above and beyond the call, and I appreciate you coming forward with them. It's great to have good news. At the same time, a lot of times when we all listen to the news or read in the papers of departments where deputy activity may not be entirely appropriate, we're not hearing that in Boone County. I think you've got wonderful men underneath you, and I thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse. Next up, public comment. I have one slip here for public comment. If there's anybody else who would like to speak, I ask that you please grab one of these forms up here at the front, fill it out, and bring it up here, and we'll certainly get you up to the podium. For this here, I have Keith Akers. Mr. Akers, come on up. Would you like to?
Yeah, I actually don't have a comment to make. I was just filling it out in case I need to speak. I wasn't sure if, as the applicant for the solar project,
Oh, okay.
required to fill that out. That was the only reason I filled it out.
Okay, nope, that's not. This is just for public comment, so.
Keep it short then. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Next up, Council on Aging.
Thank you. We met Monday night. This is the end of our fiscal year, and the financials came out extremely good. I think if I remember right, the expenses were about $500 different in $1.5 million budget to being the same on what was budgeted and what the actual expenses were. So pretty amazing to see it come in that good. But all the numbers came in quite good. They're really doing a wonderful job. One thing I do want to tell the group, they are hoping to have a meeting on September 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. It would be like an open house. They think there's a lot of people in the county and the county board, the city council, and other groups that really have not had much of an opportunity to come in and look at what they do and to be given a tour. And they are hoping to have that tour on September 18th in the evening. So I just thought I'd make mention of that. Now you'll probably be seeing more about it in mail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellingson. Growth Dimensions.
Good evening. I know it's been some time since I've been in front of the board, so I'll try to keep it brief, but update you on what we've been working on. I had spent some time in D.C. There was a Select USA investment. It's one of the largest attended foreign direct investment seminars in which high-profile businesses will come and elected officials will come and trying to encourage people to come to the U.S. for opportunities to invest in our local areas. So we went there with the state of Illinois and trying to promote our region, our state, and the United States. And we were able to establish a lot of contacts and some good rapport with other communities. And we tried to share this information out, but we have 10 countries currently that have investment in Boone County alone. So a lot of people aren't aware of the number of investors that have come from outside our area. We have a couple projects that we've worked on. Project Trigger was one I presented some time ago. It was a 10-acre research and development type project. They have decided not to choose our location, as well as another project called Project Magic Beans, and they were looking at food manufacturing. There's another project that we've been working with is Project Neptune. It's a 40-acre opportunity, 50 to 130,000 square feet. It could bring over 280 jobs over a 7-year period and $81 million in investment. This is another food production opportunity. And just today I was in discussion with another developer that is working with a manufacturer and interested in one of our locations. And this is a clean manufacturing site, but I have limited information at this time to share. We have our first certified site established in Boone County. It's the Crosslink site. It's across from the FCA. So we have that on our certified site list. We're going to be working with other landowners and communities to try to bring others to become certified sites. This will help reduce the risk for businesses that are interested in coming to our area, and it helps our ability to promote what we have available. This year, we thus far have had 18 new enterprise zone projects. And we've had about $3.2 million in capital investment
and $1.6 million in construction costs. So it's lower than last year because we don't have a large project this time, but it's still a substantial amount, and it's starting to pick up a little bit. We are also, we've submitted an application for a project called Community Thrive Initiative. This is through the Rockefeller Foundation, and it's a Chan Zutenberg initiative. It's a 2-year grant and can bring up to $1 million to our community. Right now, we're under review, and finalists will be decided at the end of August. But our project focused on taking a building, revamping the building, bringing community-based organizations together to provide education, training, and services to our community in order to help increase the financial well-being of individuals. So it's really is open to what we're looking to develop in our area, also bring some training to our area with something that employers and job seekers alike are looking for. So we'll keep you up to date, and hopefully we'll make it to the next round.
Any questions for Pam? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, CASA. Charlotte's here.
Hello. Got distracted for a second, don't mind me. We were able to close 2 child cases this past month, but unfortunately we opened 3. So we are still hanging in right around the same mark. We're currently serving 43 children in Boone County. Other than that, we are working on fundraising. We have our car show coming up the end of August, and so if you're interested or have a classic car or a new car that you would like to enter, motorcycles, all sorts of good stuff, by all means, let me know. We are also having our celebrity roast of Joe Hamblock on September 13th. We're getting sponsorships and donations for that. Tickets are officially on sale. They are available at the Midland States Bank Belvidere locations, and through the CASA office and through the community building. Tickets are only $35 a piece. That includes a meal, so that should be a good time. And our 50/50 raffle tickets are currently on sale. There's 6 tickets for $5. You can get those through the CASA office, through our CASA board members, including Jeff, and through all the roast tickets and the 50/50 tickets are also available through the CASA website.
Any questions for Charlotte? Mr. Stark.
When was the car show?
August 25th from 10 to 2 with a rain date of the 26th, and that's at the community building. There'll be food trucks, live music, door prizes, 50/50 raffle, all sorts of good stuff. So it should be a good time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thanks, Charlotte.
Thanks.
Board of Health. Amanda.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Amanda Mail with the Boone County Health Department, and I just wanted to give a few updates. I wanted to let the county board know that the 4th annual Boone County Farmers Market and Wellness Fair that happened yesterday from 9 to 3 went extremely well. I don't have all numbers available. I'll have more information next month, but I can tell you that there were over 400 guests in attendance. This is a collaborative between Boone County Administration, Boone County Health Department, and the City of Belvidere. We had 3 farmers, and they ran out of produce before noon. So that was a lesson learned for next year that we're going to have to double up on fruits and vegetables. We had 39 health and wellness vendors, and we served 150 meals to children ages 2 to 18 as part of the summer food program. The Boone County Health Department is one of multiple sites here in Boone County that provides free meals to children during the summertime. So it was a huge success, and more information to come next month. Wanted to draw your attention to the fact that next Wednesday, July 25th, the Northern Illinois Food Bank Mobile Pantry will be providing services to some of our most vulnerable populations here in our Boone County admin parking lot. Usually there's several hundred folks that come through in a matter of 2 hours, If you're all aware, the Northern Illinois Food Bank provides services to 13 counties, and every time I read this number, I'm absolutely shocked. They serve 71,000 people every single week with food. I'm going to say that again. 71,000 people every single week in 13 counties. So in Boone County, we have 26.2% of our children who are food insecure, which means that they don't know where their next meal is coming from. So for me, as the administrator of the public health department in this community, that's not acceptable, and we have a lot of work to do. So all of these programs that we're talking about, Summer Food Program, Farmers Market, Northern Illinois Food Pantry Mobile, these are all the ways in which that we can best address those needs. And the Northern Illinois Food Bank oversees the work of the Belvidere Boone County Pantry, and then our pantry here in Belvidere. So that's that. And then just a reminder, we have one more Narcan training that is available to the public, and that is Tuesday, July 31st at 3 p.m. at the Boone County Health Department. We've offered 6 trainings. That'll be the 7th one. We've had about 125 people in attendance throughout the sessions, and really good response from the community, some good TV coverage on the local work that's being done. So our fatal overdose rate in Boone County is higher than the state average, which is also an issue that we should be taking into consideration as we're working on our public health efforts going forward. So the time? I'm sorry? The time? It's Tuesday, July 31st at 3 p.m. So that flyer has gone out to county board members via email, so I figured in the respectable way of keeping the budget on track, I figured I wouldn't bring more copies. I can resend it out to you guys so that make sure you have it. And then one other thing I did want to address in terms of current events is we are well into our West Nile virus tracking and trapping season. Say that 3 times fast. And so far, in the state of Illinois, there have been 23 positive counties, which means that they've identified West Nile virus in groupings of mosquitoes across the state. There's been 1 human case in Cook County so far, and we trap in 4 locations throughout Boone County. So last year, just to give you an idea, there were 90 total human cases. So we've had 1 so far this year, but it's still early in the season. We usually see the majority of our human cases later in the year. So that's what's going on with West Nile. And then for the last piece of my report, I did want to ask Chief Woody and Sheriff Ernst to come on up. We have just a special recognition that the health department would like to present, and then I'll turn it over to these gentlemen if they'd like to say anything more about the program. But this is the 4th year that we've had a collaboration of Sheriff, Police, Explorer Scouts, and the Boone County Health Department. We've received a grant from the Illinois Department of Human Services to do tobacco compliance checks. And the goal of that program is to protect the health of young people. So the team of individuals visits our 35 known tobacco retailers in Boone County to assure that all regulations regarding tobacco sales are being followed and that corrective action is taken when a retailer is in violation. So our Explorer Scouts are underage individuals that go into the tobacco retailers and they attempt to purchase a pack of cigarettes, and if they are successful, then that's when you all come in. Do you want to explain anything else about the law enforcement side?
First of all, thank you, Amanda. As far as the Explorer Post program, for those of you that are not aware, we have advisors from both the county and the city that monitor the program. They're in charge of young adults, age 14 to 20, and they come in to learn more about law enforcement in general. They learn about crime scene processing, traffic stops, as well as many other facets of law enforcement. And part of their duties, like Amanda said, are alcohol and tobacco compliance checks. So we have received funds in the past from the health department. We do appreciate it, and it goes towards equipment and resources for the program to hopefully help better aid their learning experience.
No, actually, everything the chief said is actually true. The big thing is these are great kids. These are volunteer kids. They volunteer throughout the community on several different events that we do. They come in uniform, traffic control. Several of these kids are now, I know the city just hired one as one of their officers last year, I think. So these are kind of funnel them in the right direction. So great program, and we do appreciate the money, and it all goes to those kids. So thank you.
So I don't know if you guys just want to cut this check in half, or what? I'm just kidding. Split it. So that's the grant funding that then goes back to help for the joint Explorer post between the city and the county. And the enforcement piece of public health ties in really nicely with the work that we do with law enforcement, making sure that we keep our kids and our community safe and healthy. And so we really appreciate the collaboration. And thank you, gentlemen, very much.
It is a partnership, so we have one.
Okay, are there any questions?
The mobile food distribution on the 25th is going to happen here. Do you need volunteers?
I do need volunteers, yes. So on the 25th, it's from 10 to noon. The volunteer time frame is about 9:30 to 12:30 because there's a little bit of setup, prep, and then takedown. I'm actually in need of a few more volunteers. You'll find me out there in a Northern Illinois Food Bank t-shirt for the morning and several of my staff members. If any county board members would like to help distribute food to some of our most needy families, we would greatly appreciate that. You can contact me if you'd like to be involved. So, are there any other questions?
Thank you very much. Next up is Regional Planning Council. I was not able to attend that. Ken, were you at that one?
They haven't met since I've given the last report, so
Right.
we're good.
Okay. Next up, general consent items. We have some fund transfers on there, some raffle permits, and then donations. Just to read the names of those who have been generous with their funds. Margie Carlson, Belvidere Moose Lodge, number 295, UAW Local 1267, Robert and Christine Bagelman, all donated to Animal Services, and Dan and Sherry Briggs to the Sheriff's Department. We thank all of them for their donations and their consideration for Boone County and these departments.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Newhouse.
A few months back, we had discussions on whether the donations were deductible or not. Has that ended up making any difference, or is that a conversation point to those people with those people who are making donations, or are they donating regardless of whether it's deductible or not?
If I understand your question 100%, I don't know that anybody has ever told them that they are or aren't tax deductible. So I don't know that that is entering into their decision making whether to donate or not to donate. As far as the question of whether or not it's tax deductible, I believe we found information that said that because we're a county, it's tax deductible. So if you know somebody that has lots of money and they'd like to donate, they can take it as a tax deduction. So if your mattress is getting kind of lumpy, you could take a few stacks out and bring it in and drop it off.
The mattresses is lumpy for a very different reason.
So I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Newhouse, seconded by Ms. Branson. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, PZB.
Thank you. We have 9.1 is a motion to approve case number 11-2018. Sincarfa Solar LLC, the applicant, Sincarfa Solar, 250 West 57th Street, Suite 701, New York, is requesting a special use permit pursuant to 2.7 of special uses in section 3.16.1 of the table of permitted uses of the Boone County zoning ordinance to allow for the operation of energy facility 1 megawatt or greater, commonly known as a solar energy development. The subject property is located in unincorporated Flora Township, Boone County, Illinois, on 20 acres, pin 07-03-400-002. It has gone through several phases with, I guess, just one negative vote.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ellingson, seconded by Ms. Ward. Discussion. Ms. Miller.
I would, excuse me, I would like to see the language that was used in the Borrego special use permit for decommissioning, the tiered system of decommissioning. I would like to see that put into this special use permit, as I do not see how the two developments are substantially different, that they would need to be treated differently.
Ms. Ward.
Is that in the form of a motion, Jessica?
Yes, please.
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Ms. Milner to change the decommissioning language in this case to mirror the decommissioning language of the Borrego project.
Yes.
And that's seconded by Ms. Ward. Discussion. Ms. Ward.
Yes, I believe, and I don't want to put words in the mouth of our state's attorney, but I think she has told us that if we want to stay out of legal trouble, we have to be as fair as possible to everyone and keep them as alike as possible. So I think that's a good reason to do exactly what this motion states.
Okay. Mr. Newhouse.
To the state's attorney, we had on our table at PZB a letter from Farm Bureau stating that if there's going to be any changes at the board level on any amendments on any of, just any amendments, that needs to go back to ZBA. I know that has not been the case over the years. We have made changes, and so I guess I'd like to hear from the state's attorney what the level of a substantial change is or a small change is, whether it requires relooking at anything from the ZBA, or would you take 100% issue with what Farm Bureau has asserted in that letter?
I did prepare a response to the Farm Bureau letter, and it was emailed to the board members today, as well as in your executive board docs for anyone who has not read that. But there's the ZBA presents to the county board recommendations, and those are recommendations that our statute and state statute allows you to accept, reject, in whole or in part, and the special use can be adopted with conditions put on by the county board. So yes, the county board here has the right to make conditions and incorporate that into the special use permit. In fact, that is the board's job. The board is the only person that can actually impose those conditions. Again, the ZBA is only a recommendation.
Mr. Newhouse.
So, in your opinion, then, did I understand there would be no degree of change that would be too large?
No,
it would have to go back.
That's correct. The reason it would go back to the ZBA for reconsideration is if there was new evidence that the board wanted to have presented to be considered in a particular case. And in this case, the decommissioning plan was presented at the ZBA. It is in the staff report and was changed at the ZBA level. That was their recommendation, but it was presented at the ZBA in this case in particular. But again, that would be the only time that it would be referred back to the ZBA. It doesn't matter if it's small change or big change, as long as the board is making a determination that's based in evidence presented, then the board can impose conditions. The board can even if the ZBA recommends denying the petition, or I'm sorry, the special use, the county board can still approve it with a supermajority. So even if their findings find that it doesn't meet the criteria, the county board can still do so if they believe the facts do support the criteria, and then can issue the special use.
Okay.
Mr. Ellings.
Seemed like a couple of years ago, we had an issue where we had a meeting and we did decline to pass something that had come forward. And we were told we needed to rethink it because in order to do that, we have to explain the finding of fact. It was a finding of fact issue at that time that we were not following the finding of fact, and that could end us in a lawsuit. How does that differ?
Well, I think that if you're going to make a determination, you have to explain why you're making the determination on the record. And I wasn't the state's attorney at that time, but that's my recollection of that issue, was that the vote was taken without the board articulating as to why they were voting the way that they were, as to why, what evidence supported the determination not to pass a special use.
Mr. Newhouse?
To Jessica's motion, if I'm looking at the advisory report on page 7 of 10, is your motion to amend essentially to reinstate condition number 20, or paragraph number 23, which was omitted in its entirety?
Ms. Milner?
I was just saying 1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The question is to me. Yes, it's my understanding that that language mirrors the language that we used when drafting the ordinance that in support of the Borrego development. And it's a tiered system of decommissioning with the constant continual reevaluation of those costs. And trying to keep those costs in the actual what they actually are. So it takes care of a lot of things, I think.
Mr. Newhouse?
Oh, shoot. The applicant, was his, Kevin? Keith. Yeah, I got the first letter right. Keith at PZB left that meeting, and I had requested that in between that meeting and tonight, he talk to his financial group and find out whether the reinsertion of this, some of this language, where in the final paragraph of 23, it says, reevaluate the estimated cost of decommissioning of the commercial, right there, Ken, of the commercial solar energy facility after the 10th anniversary and every 5 years thereafter. This is, again, substantially different than what he was led to believe at the end of ZBA, and I asked him to discuss with his financial team whether he would be open to re-looking at the value of the bonding, and I would like to ask him if he's got an answer from his financial group.
Sure, please. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Sure. So my name is Keith Akers, A-K-E-R-S, and I am the Vice President of Development with Sincarfa Solar. Yeah, so last week, I guess, we had this conversation with the PZB board. I did go back, Marshall, and I talked to our finance team, and the answer they gave me is what I expected. It's probably not going to be to your satisfaction, but here's what I got. From a financing point of view, when we look at a project, as much certainty as there can be makes it easier, obviously, to finance a project. So when we know what the decommissioning amount is for the duration of the project, that's always our preference. When I mentioned to them the whole concept of trying to reevaluate it with having the opportunity of the bonding amount to not only go up, but also come down, should technology improve, it becomes cheaper to remove the solar equipment. That is something that we would be open to, so long as we discussed at the PZB meeting that the evaluations wouldn't be on a 6-month or yearly term, but more towards the 5 to 10 year range that you had talked about. just so it wouldn't be a constant reevaluation and constant changing number. So as long as there's structure around it in terms, then we wouldn't be opposed to it.
Mr. Newhouse?
I took the liberty of visiting with the chairman of ZBA, a fellow named Tony Savino, today, and I said, Tony, can you talk to me about what was going on when you removed looking at the bonding amount on these 5-year increments, and you added the sentence that replaces the whole 23rd paragraph. Ken, could I get you to roll down to the next page? There's a line in yellow immediately coming up. And it says, with all of that removed, it says, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the bonds must total 100% of the engineer's estimate of the total decommissioning costs. And he said, yes, that's what we said. I said, Tony, what happens when you and I both look back 25 years, the cost of labor, the cost of a car, the cost of a gallon of milk, and we realized everything was bought for a song 25 years ago, and you're going to put the value of decommissioning on today's dollars 25 years from now, either the operator, the farmer, or the county is going to get hooked terribly if these costs change the way they have changed the last 25 years for just about everything that we buy. And he said, oh, I didn't think about that. And then I said, Tony, is there any reason why we should not have a 5, 10, 15-year anniversary to look at the bonding amount? And he says, yes, that was the intent. And I said, no, it can't be the intent, because if you could scroll back up to the previous page, I said, you just removed the final paragraph, which says that's what you're going to do. You're going to look at it on these 5-year increments. And his quote was, I quote, that was an oversight, not reevaluating the value of the bond. So I had been visiting with the state's attorney about this, and she wanted me to be sure if I made any amendments tonight that I had minutes in the finding of fact. And what I got from the chairman of ZBA is that it was an oversight, and there is no dialogue on that. So what can I do if I want to either move forward with this amendment or another portion of this amendment if this fails and there isn't anything in the finding of fact?
Well, it was presented in the staff report, so that was before the ZBA. Just the fact that it was an oversight that they maybe didn't mean to take out that paragraph doesn't mean it wasn't discussed or talked about. The decommissioning plan was discussed at the ZBA at that time. So I think that, and in fact, what the motion I think in front of the board here today is to adopt that language. I think that that is an appropriate motion and that it was in evidence at the time of the ZBA.
Mr. Newhouse?
So if I can just press Jessica one more time, you want word for word the 23rd paragraph, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So since that went in, that was part of the material provided, and even though there may not have been discussion on the 5-year increments for relooking at things, you still feel that's appropriate?
Right. And I guess I wouldn't say that I don't know if they didn't discuss it, but they certainly discussed the decommissioning plan, which is what was presented. So, yes, I think I am satisfied that that was brought before the ZBA in their evaluation of the project.
Ms. Ward?
I would move to call the question.
Ms. Ward moved to call the question.
Second.
Second by Mr. Stark. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. My apologies, Mr. Newhouse. I would,
The motion on the floor is to basically reinstate paragraph 23, which mirrors the language in Borrego.
Right. That's for the amendment, yes. Mhm. Correct. Okay.
Question on the reading. Does it also say to delete what was in there then?
As I would understand it, the motion is to replace the current decommissioning plan presented
Is that what it
with
said
the
was to replace?
with the decommissioning plan. It was to adopt the decommissioning plan of the Borrego project. That's as I understand it. It's
So
just a-
replacing is important, so I hope that's in there.
Ken, can you move to the next page, because we're going to have an extra sentence in there that's going to contradict everything that we're going to be voting on. The sentence in yellow is still in there.
I think that's what he's saying, is that the motion is to replace that sentence, because that's the current 23.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Sherry Geeske,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Jessica Milner,
Yes.
Marshall Newhouse,
Yes.
Bernard O'Malley,
Yes.
Brad Stark,
Yes.
Kathy Ward,
Yes.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
Sherry Branson,
Yes.
Jeff Carlisle,
Yes.
Denny Ellingson.
Yes.
Motion carries. The motion is amended, replacing the decommissioning plan to mirror that of the decommissioning plan of the Borrego project. Mr. Newhouse.
To the state's attorney again, this will be our second approval of a solar project. The first one having setbacks of 250 feet. This one having, I believe, 40 feet. And we have language moving forward that would, in our text amendment, be contrary to both of these two. Will we find any difficulty in moving forward with language that this board agreed to on a vote last month if it is in conflict with these two?
I guess first, there were no setbacks in Borrego because of where they positioned the project was beyond the 250 feet that was proposed in our text amendment, which has not passed. So that is not an issue because there were no setbacks in the Borrego project. Secondly, the text amendment has not passed and may change after it goes back through the ZBA and finally by the county board. So I don't believe you're tied to that. And I guess thirdly, that setbacks may be one of those things that, again, as long as the county board's making a decision based on, it's not arbitrary, it's not irrational, setbacks are one of those things that can vary from project to project and can probably be more easily defended in court because every piece of property is a different dimension, its neighbors can be different, it can be in a different location. Is it next to a neighborhood? Is it in an industrial area? Is it next to I-90? All those things can be taken into consideration by the board when determining setbacks versus, say, a decommissioning plan, which, again, probably is one of those things that should be more consistent from project to project. And I would say,
Mr. Ellingson.
I think actually in the Borrego project, there was discussion of setbacks, and there was a discussion of the larger setbacks that were first talked, and they were not implemented because of where they agreed to put the project. So I think we are in conflict with what was done, and I think if we, make this change we're talking about, we basically will have no setbacks. The vote we took last month on what the board wanted to recommend, and as we talked about it, we even asked why are we even voting on it last month, and it was said that, well, if the board actually has a desire and a plan, that then those things would be talked about as projects came forward, and within 30 days, that's totally thrown away from us. And I guess I would encourage, well, actually, I'm not going to encourage anything. I'm going to vote against this permit because to me it is in conflict with what we've done and what we said last month needed to happen. And basically, anybody that we've ever listened to between these meetings, PZB and the ZBA, that have come forward with concerns and testimony that has talked about concerns with any kind of setback is all being ignored.
Any further discussion? Mr. Newhouse.
I too will be voting against this, and my intent up until about 10 minutes ago was to vote for this. I agree with Jessica that we needed to have 5-year looks on our bond values. But to wait until year 10 or year 11 for 100% covered is making the assumption that this company is going to be guaranteeing us that it's going to be around for 11 years. Companies start up and companies fail. And if they fail 1 year after they get this thing going, and we have 10% of the decommissioning money in place, someone's going to be on the hook for this. And that's not where we need to be.
Further discussion?
Bernie?
Who are the landowners on the two sides? Is this a separate piece of owned property? Or is this all owned by the same persons? This field?
I can't answer that question.
Two different parties.
Oh. Mr. Akers, could you?
Thank you. Directly to the south is actually the same landowner. He owns a long rectangular piece there. Actually, he owns the majority of that southern parcel, except for the polygon carve out. That property is a property owned by the Markhams. And then to the east, there's a property owned by Teresa Loeb, I believe. And then to the northeast, it's a property owned by the Enriquez family, I believe. So to the immediate south, the same landowner, but different landowners around it.
So you're actually 200 feet away from the closest, 250 feet from the closest landowner.
283 feet from the, yeah, but to the north, it is a different landowner in that crop field, and we are 40 feet away from that one.
Why do you need a setback on land they already own? I don't understand why you're going to put a setback on the sides of this property when they own the property.
It's because for the ordinance for the agricultural zone, it's a 40-foot setback. So that's what we were abiding by.
Yeah, to me, the 100-foot setback was for landowners of different people who are next to it. And I think you're confusing apples and oranges. I don't understand why you have the same landowner has to not farm as much land. It seems silly to look at bigger setbacks when you own the property already.
So can you just repeat the question? I just want to make sure I'm understanding it.
If you own the land to the north and south.
They don't own the land to the north.
Oh, they don't own the land?
Yeah, the land to the north is a different landowner.
Oh, okay. So this is different.
Yeah, so that north parcel one is somebody else. And he's got a buffer of the second parcel on that parcel.
So it's just to the one side.
It's just to the neighbor to the north. It's 40 feet from that. But for everybody else, the closest neighbor, the closest one would be the Markham residence, which once again I believe is 280 feet, give or take.
Mr. Stark, you had something?
Oh, he answered my question. I was asking, I wanted to know about the north parcel.
Okay.
Parcel to the north, and he answered.
Okay. Mr. Ellingson.
Well, I was just going to point out again that it was two different people, but they understand that now.
Okay. Anything further? Any other questions for Mr. Akers? Ms. Miller, did you have something? I saw you wave your hand. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. This is to approve the amended motion.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Jessica Milner,
Yes.
Marshall Newhouse.
No.
Bernard O'Malley.
Yes.
Brad Stark.
Yes.
Kathy Ward.
Yes.
Carl Johnson.
Yes.
Sherry Branson.
No.
Jeff Carlisle.
Yes.
Denny Ellingson.
No.
Sherry Gieske.
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Ellingson, anything further?
Better not.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Finance. Skiski.
Thank you. Item 10.1 is a motion to approve claims with the understanding that Carl Johnson abstains from voting on all claims presented by William Charles and Associates, and Denny Ellingson abstains from voting on all claims presented by Conserve FS. This was approved 5-0 in committee.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Skiski, second by Mr. Carlisle. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Jessica Muehlner.
Yes.
Marshall Newhouse.
Yes.
Bernard O'Malley.
Yes.
Brad Stark.
Yes.
Kathy Ward.
Yes.
Carl Johnson.
Yes.
Sherry Branson.
Yes.
Jeff Carlisle.
Yes.
Denny Ellingson.
Yes.
Sherry Gieske.
Yes.
Carl Larson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 10.2 is a motion to approve a proposal with E-Alliance Corporation for data management software solutions at a cost of $20,000 to be paid between fiscal year 2019 and 2020. There was no vote taken at the committee on this.
Motion by Ms. Skiski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Malley. Discussion. Ms. Smith.
I guess there's been some discussions at the Finance Committee regarding part of the contract with this company that, as it relates to giving a rebate or a percentage off to the county on the purchase price if we can bring in other counties or other entities to use the software. We have reached out to the Attorney General for an opinion, as well as I've reached out to a group for the other state's attorneys in the state of Illinois. And the issue we have is that it's an unusual term for counties. Typically, counties can only take in money in certain ways. So I just want to say that if the vote is here today, yes, for the project, we have to assume that we're going to have to pay the full 20%. Or $20,000. However, if we're able to work it so legally that we can take a deduction, that we will work to do that. I mean, that is our goal. I just want to make sure the board is aware that at this point in time, we're still trying to make sure we're on firm legal ground to do that. I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding that.
Mr. Stark.
To know that information?
We've reached out to the Attorney General, and they basically, it's one of those things, when they get to it, they will get to it. So we've done legal research in a lot of different areas of how counties can take in money, and we just can't find anything similar in case law or statute across a broad area of cases, and just am not confident in giving the board any other advice at this time. I don't want you to go into this thinking that you're getting the rebate and us having to pay it back or that sort of issue. I just want to be upfront about that.
Okay. Further discussion on this. Mr. Stark.
Yes. I don't know who this question would be addressed to, but if we chose not to move forward until we know where we are at a legal standpoint, is this offer expired? Does it stay in effect until we know where we're at legally?
Mr. Carlisle, can you answer that?
Yes, I can answer that.
Please use your microphone.
I
Thank you,
can
sir.
answer that. The clause in the option of getting this rebate is still standing. We don't have to collect it until we get authorization from our state's attorney. It still will be invoked on the contract as it stands.
Any further discussion on this? Mr. Ellingson?
I guess with that note, I don't see in the wording of the motion that we will be approving it with the state's attorney having the final say upon recommendation. Should it say that?
Well, I guess I don't think it necessarily has to say that because we've reviewed the contract. I think the issue is that we would only take advantage of the rebate if we feel that we can legally go forward and take that rebate. So I think that it's already part of the contract. That's what they're agreeing to. That's what you'd be agreeing to. But whether we invoke that would be at a later date when we receive that information. So I don't know if it has to be subject to our approval because we approved the contract. It's just at a later date, I guess, accepting a part of the contract or invoking part of the contract.
Yeah, it will be basically a redone contract if the Attorney General recommends that, won't it? We won't be following it completely.
It's already in the contract for us to get that rebate, but what I guess I'm saying is that we might not be able to accept that rebate.
Right.
And so I don't think the contract would be rewritten. I just think that we would take advantage of that rebate.
So that will change the cost of it.
It would change the cost.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why if the cost is $20,000 now with no rebate, I just want that, if you're going to approve it, that could be your full cost. Again, we're trying to do what we can to hopefully take advantage of that rebate, and as long as it's legally available to us, we will recommend that. But again, we just want to make sure.
Ms. Kieske.
Well, I think Tricia sort of said what I was going to say. The cost, we finally separated out the potential of getting revenue stream because by statute, we electronically can. So the $20,000 we're on the hook for. And I'm just reiterating what Tricia said. And so the price will go down if we are allowed to do that. Otherwise, we're on the hook for $20,000, but also understand that there is a hosting fee.
Mr. Carlisle, what's the cost of that hosting fee?
It's right up here. It's $4,800.
Per year, regardless of the number of departments utilizing it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think one of the things that came from finance was a desire to kind of hear from department heads a little bit as to what they know about this, what they've seen about this, and what they feel about this. I've had discussions with a couple of department heads. I know Mr. Tresmer's here. Would you be interested in talking to the board or giving us your opinions, what you've seen? Absolutely. Just right at the microphone would be perfect.
Good evening. As to the cost, that I cannot address. We were asked to review that. I just honestly couldn't give an answer to what kind of cost savings this would be. As to being customer friendly to our residents, I think it would be a huge improvement. Most people today live by email or technology somehow. This would allow for people to be much easier format to interact with our department. We are a small staff, so anything that can take some of the time away from us being on the phone or what have you would be great. Also, I talked with Drew, the ability to accept debit or credit card would be wonderful. Most everybody carries plastic nowadays. So there's a lot of things where this would be it allows for much more interaction with the community, with the department. And I think this is the type of stuff this trend's not going to reverse. I think we have a good chance to get ahead of it now. So I just think this would be a great opportunity for our department to be able to do a lot of stuff online. I think there's a lot of stuff that could be between departments, a lot of information sharing. We had an address up in the north end of the county. We have been dealing with these people for quite some time. Through some brief discussion with Mr. Bliss, we found out they have been trying to reach these people for a year because they didn't have an official address. So there was no way for us to share that information. If there was this type of internet interfacing networking, it would make it a lot easier for the departments to share information. So.
Questions for Mr. Tresmer? Mr. Newhouse.
easier sharing information, that just translates to me, I think, into efficiencies and is there any opportunity or any guesstimate that you might provide on hours saved, or do you fully know how you would utilize this to be able to speculate on that?
I think the ability to have everything coming in through one format and be able to review that on a regular basis, as opposed to like chance discussion with another department of what's happening. This allows for us to have the ability to access one point. If we have a residence that another department has been dealing with, that we could contact the other department and say, what has been your interaction with this residence, because we have to go out there for a complaint. So I know there's areas with the sheriff's department that some residents are considered probably not the safest to go to alone. So it'd be nice to have some of that information provided without having to call everybody all the time. I hope that answers your question. So.
Good enough.
Ms. Kieske?
In our packet, it shows an estimated weekly, 8 hours a week being saved. So if you ratchet that up in an average salary of $15 an hour, you're talking about $6,240 annually being saved. And that's, of course, just an estimate. But still, I think that,
Yeah, these are projections Jeff and I have spoke about. As far as accuracy or something to really rely on right now, I just cannot speak to that. So,
I think that's what Mike's.
Mr. Carlo?
I have an email from Hillary, who was discussing these applications for the software, and she also showed that this could be a web-based program that would assist her in her programs. The ease of input for the applicant, the planner will still have to do some of the info, but in an advisory report, which is a document that she puts out often, it's something that's already been put into this type of software and can be kept and maintained as a RAIL, which is a rolling action item list. Those rails are important for each department head because they can follow through on everything that's open, closed, pending, and have status on all those. She also says something about the software being more helpful for the planning staff. It would be a portal for all departments so agencies can submit comments to her or review an application. All applications will be online for her, and paperwork will go directly into that department, as it would with any other department who has forms and setups, as with the clerk's office and the animal services, Mr. Bliss's office, planning offices will all have these opportunities in court, and of course Ken's office would have this at the highest level for serving input on automatic records that could be inputted into the system and shared. Also, she said planning commission and ZBA do not have access to board docs, so I post the agenda packet on the website as a large PDF, which sometimes is I can't say those. Because the website can only handle 10 megabytes, so I end up having to cut documents as part 1 and part 2. Spend a lot of time doing this work, and I do miss 3 times a month, but not more if I have a special meeting. Efficiency, like you said, Marshall, absolutely. This is going to help us move forward for our community, and our community deserves this opportunity that we can offer them.
Mrs. Milner.
Well, I don't want to give the impression that I'm a Luddite or anything, but it just sounds. I think it sounds wonderful. If a program that could truly share information in the way that we're discussing, and it would be ideal. But what I don't see in this presentation or in any of the discussions are. And I believe you brought this up at committee. There's really not a whole lot of discussion about the forms will there need to be forms that need to be created? Who will create these forms? Will the data be imported into this? How will the data be moved in? Will there be manual data entry that has to occur? Who will do it? There's a lot of holes in this plan. I think it's a little bit pie in the sky. I have some knowledge of the way IT projects typically roll out, and there's a lot of, realistically, IT projects fail all the time. And that's just part of, because it's a creative process in addition to being a very technical process. And we would need to accept that with this as being a new thing. The implementation of this is not going to be as smooth as this, and it's going to be more expensive and more time consuming than any of us is even really looking at, and I'm going to be voting no, especially since in a few minutes we're going to vote on a $100,000 generator that we didn't plan for, so I'm not sure why we're trying to spend more money today.
Mr. Carlisle, you had something?
Just briefly, it is with. I'm going to try to put this as easily as possible. Facts bring forth data that you can vote on. Figures, presentations, representation of the fact and the truth that these people are going to do it is what we have got in front of us, and we have done for the last year. We've had department heads, we've had meetings that you have attended, and everybody else has attended, mostly. And it's been available for everybody to attend. Such that I would just like to call the question.
Second.
Motion to call the question by Mr. Carlisle, seconded by Mr. Stark. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. That's unfortunate, Mr. Carlisle, because we had two other departments here that I would have loved to have heard from. Roll call.
Marshall Newhouse.
No.
Bernard O'Malley.
Yes.
Brad Stark.
Yes.
Kathy Ward.
No.
Carl Johnson.
No.
Sherry Branson.
Yes.
Jeff Carlisle.
Yes.
Denny Ellingson.
I abstain.
Sherry Gieske.
Yes.
Carl Larson.
Yes.
Jessica Milner.
No.
Motion carries. Anything further from finance?
Nope, that's it.
Roads.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have motion 11-1, which was a motion to approve bids for Squaw Prairie Beloit resurfacing. We're not going to take any action on these bids at this time, so we'll roll on to 11-2. Motion to approve the low quote from Rush Power Systems for an emergency purchase of a diesel generator at our jail facility in the amount of $111,660.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Stark, seconded by Ms. Ward. Discussion. Mr. Stark.
I just wanted to add, this was a low quote from a local vendor. I feel very good about working with these people and have no doubts in their abilities to get us back up and running with an emergency generator.
Any further discussion? Ms. Gieske.
I can't remember. It seems to me, does this price include the rental for it doesn't?
Yes.
And we got that negotiated down. Is that correct, Ken? We negotiated that price?
The vendor has a much lower cost.
1,600 to $1,000 or something. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Stark.
We don't pay for a rental. As soon as we accepted their contract, we don't pay for the rental until it's I think a 10 to 12 week lead time. We're not paying for rental. They're providing the emergency backup generator in place now. That was part of their quote. So we're not spending any more money on a rental. Rush Power Systems is taking that up as part of this.
Ms. Gieske.
And I mean, it's a significant difference, but you feel comfortable. I don't know anything about engines, I should have asked my husband, but I think the engine is a good one. Is that not right?
I think this is what, a Cummins engine, I believe?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Cummins. Yeah, I think I'm familiar with Rush Power Systems from the local municipalities that I work with, and many of them from this direction, west and south, utilize Rush Power Systems for service and maintenance on their existing generators and to do work and things. And I have yet to hear anything bad about them. They all speak very highly of them. their work ethic and working with them. So I'm very confident in this. Mr. Newhouse?
To Ken, contingencies, working with the sheriff and his contingencies, or dollar amounts coming from where?
As I've said at committee, I believe the general fund will have to pay this emergency expense.
Anything further? Roll call, please.
Bernard O'Malley,
Yes.
Brad Stark,
Yes.
Kathy Ward,
Yes.
Carl Johnson.
Yes.
Sherry Branson,
Yes.
Jeff Carlisle,
Yes.
Denny Ellingson,
Yes.
Sherry Gieske,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Jessica Muehlner,
Yes.
Marshall Newhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Stark, anything else?
That is all we have at roads.
Okay, while we are on roads, I want to just throw a quick shout out to our county engineer. In case you have not heard, I hope you have, you probably have, but we were successful in gaining federal funds for the Poplar Grove Bridge. And that, I think, is in large part due to Mr. Crone and his abilities to work the system and work with the state and the feds and everybody else and beg and plead and show our case. And I think you could probably throw away those holey jeans and that torn shirt that you go to those meetings in now. So at least for this week. Next week's another week. So we, I just think it's a great job by you, and I wanted to make sure we publicly pointed that out. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Did
Ms.
you
Ward.
Did you mention the amount of $3 million?
Yes, it's over $3 million. So it's an 80-20 grant. The bad news is we're still going to be stuck with about $700,000 or $800,000 that we have to come up with. But the good news is the feds are coming up with $3.2 million or so. So that is an excellent job. Thank you, sir. And I know he has many things in the hopper he's still working on, so he wants this meeting to be done soon so he can get and start right. Mr. Newhouse?
Well, you just took all the wind out of my sails. I was going to ask him to come up and talk. I assume things are going on the Manchester project, and things are also moving at the north end of the county on Poplar Grove Road, or are those two working together, or are they working at different times?
Sorry if we woke you up back there.
Did you read your emails today at all, by chance? Or?
I've been on the combine all day.
Okay,
so
no,
my
I understand. So
apologies.
I'll update you. I believe this is okay to do. I think it's official. Last night at the Leroy Township meeting, the commissioner up there resigned. So that changes things a bit. So that might help with your question a little bit. But there is a lot of activity going on up there. We have an awarded bid to Civil to seal coat Randall Road in Leroy Township. We're currently working on improving the base, roadway base up there. We've done some drainage improvements along that road as well. North of Manchester Road, Poplar Grove Road has been milled up. We're evaluating whether we're going to resurface that this year or next year with a new seal coat surface, in addition to adding base to that road as well. So that's, and there are ongoing other issues going on up there too, but other improvements happening up there as well.
Ms. Gieske.
Excuse me, you said you're seal coating Randall Road east of Beaverton or west?
It would be a very small section east of Beaverton to the nursery facility, and then we're doing a single. That's a double A2 seal coat because it's an aggregate surface right now, and then from Beaverton to the east, we are doing a small section that's existing seal coat. We're putting another layer on that occurs every 7 years or so, and it's in need of that. And then from Union Road, so going further east on Randall Road to Union Road, we are seal coating from Union Road to past Leroy Center and then up to Capron Road.
And so, may
Please.
So you guys are the ones that did the ditches there on Randall?
I didn't do it, but
Well,
we facilitated that work, yes.
You facilitated, okay,
Yes.
all right,
Yep.
wow.
And so, yeah, that's the big thing with these roads. One of the grants I'm working on right now is to help the townships on the rural roads improve the drainage and the base structure of the roads. That's the number one thing that degrades a road outside of the abuse by semis or larger weights. Loads on those roads is the water. So if we can get improved drainage, that's 90% of the battle.
Ms. Kieske?
So, is there a plan in place to make sure work in Leroy Township keeps going?
I'm continuing as last directed, and as we are under a awarded contract to make sure that is successful. So until I hear otherwise, then this just developed in the last 24 hours. But in fact, I was unfortunately very busy today with a lot of those situations up there, I think we should be okay. I don't foresee any problems.
Thank you.
Anything further for Justin? Thank you very much. Next up, Health and Human Services. Mr. Carlisle, anything you want to chime in?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Admin.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the election judge list dated July 3rd, 2018.
Motion by Mr. Newhouse. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Kieske. Any discussion? Mr. Newhouse.
I believe I understood from Julie that although it is a list and it is a large list, she's still and always looking for further judges to help in case of any people not showing up those days.
That is correct. In fact, up until the final day of election.
Okay.
Anything further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
No further motions from admin.
Thank you, sir. City County, Ms. Ward, I see no motions.
No
Anything you'd like
motions.
to?
That's correct.
Anything you'd like to enlighten us with? Public Safety, Mr. Larson's not here, no motions. Special Committees, Community Building.
Yes, we met last month and we're meeting again tomorrow night. We meet the night after the county board meeting almost always. Our finances are very healthy. We are still waiting for the appointment from the county board for one position, and we have another one that's still open, so we are down to, but we still have 9 people that come on a very regular basis. Because our finances are so good, we are really looking at a major project that we think will help the whole community. We have several in mind, but it's fun to serve on a board that has money to spend.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. You know, if they're looking to dole some charity out.
Yeah, I'm sure.
UCCI. Ken?
I was quite honored to be a speaker at the Leadership Academy Saturday morning, 3 hours. I don't think I put anybody to sleep, and we were done at exactly noon, so I did not stand in the way of lunch. But it was a great time, and there were a lot of county board members from around the state there. And I was certainly honored to be the presenter for that entire morning. So.
Thank you, sir. Community Action Agency, Ms. Ward.
Yes, we meet next week. Owen Carter, who's one of the main people working there, is going to be our speaker at the city-county meeting next month, so you might want to hear him. He's very good. And I think I've mentioned this before, but Mayor Mike is the president of our group. But at any rate, we will find out how finances are going with that group next week.
Thank you. 911, Mr. Newhouse.
I guess the big news is there is a 911 board in DeKalb County that has brought a suit before a judge, and it relates to how they and Boone County will move information through the 911 arena. And the judge has yet to make a ruling on that, but hopefully that will be coming soon. That will have a big impact on how we move forward with our Ninja project.
All right, Ms.
The
Smith?
ruling did just come out, and unfortunately was not in DeKalb's favor. So they're discussing where they're taking it from here. So I'm sure your next board meeting will be filled with information on that. But probably came out maybe Monday.
So if I could ask, I don't know, Tricia or Ken or Marshall, how is this affecting the next gen that we've paid money towards? Are we able to utilize it? What's the scoop that's going on with this whole thing?
I think it's too early to tell at this point, and it's also an administrative judge that it was in front of at this point in time. There's still processes to go through the circuit judge. There's also processes that the entity can take to be in compliance. So there's all sorts of issues out there. So I think it's just way too early in the ballgame to determine how this is going to ultimately affect us. But there are, I believe, 13 counties that are working together with this Ninja project. So there's a lot of counties that have an interest in this, as well as Boone County, that are working together to hopefully get this worked out.
Okay. All right. Ken, anything to add?
Without trying to get too complicated, because it is very complicated, but the essence of it, in my opinion, is that the unsuccessful bidder, which was Frontier, challenged their business relationship between the successful bidder and the Ninja Group. And the reason that the Ninja Group had to find a bidder was because to do this service, you have to be a registered, what's called CLEC. It's an acronym. It means basically you have to be a recognized phone company to do what they're trying to do. iFiber is the group that I'm a board member of that you appointed me to long ago, and we supply the fiber, but we're not a CLEC. So the thinking with the Ninja Group was that by partnering with the best low bidder, who is a CLEC, that we kind of get around all this and satisfy that requirement. However, the unsuccessful bidder, Frontier, is the one challenging this. So I agree with the state's attorney. It's too early to say what this is all going to mean.
Okay. Any other committees? Ms. Miller?
I have actually never reported from the Agricultural Preservation and Conservation Easement Committee because we don't meet very often. But we did meet, and there was some discussion of, they reported from the last committee meeting in February where they had been going over language that defines the process of setting up conservation easements, and some revamping of the bylaws. There's going to be that small committee that started that conversation is going to be meeting again August 2nd at 9 a.m. in the Health Department conference room. And then the next meeting of the committee will be August 24th at 8:30 here in this room.
Thank you very much. Any others? Okay. Scheduling of committees. Ms. Kieske.
Finance, the next finance is Tuesday, August 7th at 6 p.m. right here.
All right. Who is the vice chair of public safety?
I am.
All right.
It's August 6th at 6:45 p.m. This room. Public safety.
Mr. Ellingson?
That was what committee?
That was public safety.
Is it 6? Okay. PCB is August 1st in this room.
Is there a ZBA meeting?
I have no idea.
ZBA hearing Tuesday, the 24th at 7 p.m. There are two variances on the agenda. There was a solar farm application. However, that application has found by the Soil and Water District to be incomplete from the developer. So we are not able to do the hearing on that Tuesday, the 24th.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Newhouse.
Admin, Monday, August 6th, 6 p.m., this room.
City County is Wednesday, August 8th at 6 p.m. in this room.
Health and Human Services, August 2nd, 6 o'clock, this room.
Roads will be July 31st. If you jump on it, 6 o'clock, this room.
All right. Any unfinished business? Any new business?
Oh.
Ms. Ward?
Yes, I have one question. We talked at some meetings and after some meetings about the policy from the Health Department on infants in the workplace. Has anything been decided on that?
I can tell you that Mr. Ternoni and myself and Dan had a meeting with the director of the health department. We had a long meeting. We discussed the excuse me, that policy, and out of that meeting, it basically came out that she is going to what I want to say, I don't want to say suspend, but she's not going to implement that policy until the county board has a chance to review it more thoroughly, give some input, continued input on it, and then evaluate and make sure that it's a policy that everybody wants to go forward with. One of the other things that came out of that meeting is we're asking all departments that perhaps may have some variances in their personnel policy or may have their own personnel policy. When we're revamping the county personnel policy book, we want to have that as the baseline, so to speak, and then include in that if, I'm going to pick on the county clerk because she's sitting here to my right. If the county clerk's office has certain procedures that they need to have in a policy book that strictly affect the county clerk's office, we want to add that into our personnel policy book as an appendix, and tag it for county clerk employees. Same with state's attorney, same with highway department, and right on down the line, so that we'll have additions for every department that's department specific that can be added into that personnel policy book, so that when personnel policy changes come up, everybody's alerted to that possibility, and perhaps it's a policy that everybody wants to take advantage of, or we can see the need that it's something good for everybody, or maybe we can say, you know what, that's going to make a major change that's not necessarily comfortable for all departments, and we can evaluate things before we get to the point where it seems kind of hectic and crazy.
So this will be referred to health, perhaps, for further discussion? Is that the way this would be handled then?
I don't know if we've gotten that far yet. I think we're going to have more discussions with director of the health department and then figure out where we want to go. But I think that was part of it that we talked about going to. In fact, we did talk about health and human services and admin both, because it will affect both committees.
Sure.
And what they're doing. So
okay.
That's where it's going to go.
Thank
yes.
you.
Mr. Newhouse.
The Boone County Board of Health is under the umbrella of the Illinois Department of Public Health, and the Infants to Work has its, if I can use the word genesis or origination in the Illinois Department of Public Health. And so I guess I can understand why Amanda, under that umbrella, brought that forward. And so my question is to either Ken or Carl or the state's attorney, do any of the other departments have a state-level organization that they would be under that umbrella? Like Boone County Public Health is under Illinois Department of Public Health, and so they may have specific guidelines for their departments, and do other departments in Boone County have similar state agencies over them? If that makes sense?
I guess I would lean and perhaps say that when you're talking state's attorney's office, you've got the attorney general's office.
Okay.
They certainly have direct representation. When you're talking about the highway department, you've got the state highway department. They certainly have to follow that. So I think there's other departments that do have those kinds of issues that they have to, they would have a, an overseer at the state level of each department. So there's certainly things that they could say, look, you have to do things this way, which is why we want to put those appendix into the personnel policy. Mr. Ellingson?
Yeah, in unfinished business, I guess I'm just curious. Last month, this board took a vote on the setbacks for projects coming forward. Is that being placed on any docket anywhere, or is that just sitting?
Are you talking about for the text amendment to
we talked about
what do I want to say?
Go back to committee
amend our text amendment to amend our text amendment.
Yeah.
I believe that should be placed on the docket, Ken.
It's tentatively scheduled for August 28th, Zoning Board of Appeals. So it was acted on by the board, but we have an order that is followed with these cases that we didn't depart from, so we had to go stand in the back of the lunch line, and ours will be August 28th.
Okay. Mr. O'Malley.
I just have, I think there's a state law that you have to have a special room for breastfeeding in all of our buildings, like the courthouse and different places. And you're going to have to look at people who work who want to breastfeed to make some accommodations for them. So this gets to be a very complex issue. I think, did the state pass a law that you needed a breastfeeding room?
Are you talking about if you have the babies at work or just in general, period?
In general. If you have a juror that brings its baby, you have to have a room for it to breastfeed.
If you have a what? I'm sorry.
A juror who comes to work, or if you have someone who comes to observe the trial, you have to have some place they can breastfeed. That's a state law that passed this summer.
I guess we'll have to ask the state's attorney to investigate that.
Employer, and without getting too far into the statute, I'm not sure if it applies to the county, if there's limits as to at what level, number of employees you have to have, et cetera. I can certainly look into it and get you the information.
Okay. Anything further on new business? All right. Any informational items, Ken, that you want to bring to our attention?
Not that I can think of. No.
Okay. All right. Do we need executive session?
We do.
4.
Review of executive session minutes, litigation.
Anything else?
No. We have some motions on workman's comp settlements after executive session.
All right. I would accept a motion to go into executive session for litigation and review of executive session minutes.
So,
motion by Mr. Carlisle, seconded by Mr. Newhouse. Roll call, please.
Brad Stark,
Yes.
Kathy Ward,
Yes.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
Sherry Branson,
Yes.
Jeff Carlisle,
Yes.
Denny Ellingson,
Yes.
Sherry Giesky, Carl Larson,
Yes.
Jessica Milner,
Yes.
Marshall Newhouse,
yes.
Bernard O'Malley.
Yes.
Motion carries. Workman's comp settlement in the amount of $18,000.
$18,649.83.
18, whatever he said. Motion by Ms. Giesky, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Carl Larson. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
Sherry Branson,
Yes.
Jeff Carlisle,
Yes.
Denny Ellingson,
Yes.
Sherry Giesky,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Jessica Milner,
Yes.
Marshall Newhouse,
Yes.
Bernard O'Malley,
Yes.
Brad Stark,
Yes.
Kathy Ward.
Motion carries. Ken, anything further?
No.
Accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carlisle, seconded by Mr. Miss Giesky. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.